Having some problems with the Zoom uplink. We're going to bring this Dickson County Planning Commission meeting to order, October the 8th, 2020. Mr. Woodrow, could I get you to give devotion, sir?
If everyone would please pray with me. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day that you've given us. Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to meet here tonight and conduct the business of our county. Lord, we ask you to give us the strength and the wisdom and the courage to make good decisions here tonight. Lord, we ask you to watch over us, guide us, keep us safe and in your love. Most of all, we thank you for Jesus, for it's in his precious holy name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Mr. Darnell, could I get you to give roll call, sir?
Todd Berry, Robert Witherow,
Here.
Shane Chandler,
Here.
Mike Pilkerton, here. Robert Qualls,
Here.
David Brogdon,
Here.
Harold Williams,
Here.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler, Wayne Durham, Mr. Chairman, Robert Colmers.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to recognize all the visitors in the crowd. And it's a little bit different circumstances. We usually have a podium out there. We have a list right here on this side table. If you would please sign in if you have not done so as you exit. Okay, at this time, we'll move into the approval of the minutes, and I do have one correction before we start. Last meeting, the minutes, a motion was made by Robert Qualls and seconded by Robert Woodrow to end the FEMA updates to the County Commission for public hearing. Motion passed by unanimous vote. That's the only addition. Everything else stands as it was. Has everybody else looked over that?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes with the corrections as presented.
Okay, I have a motion by Robert Woodrow to accept the amended minutes and a second by Robert Qualls. No further discussion. I guess we can, no need to roll call this. All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, we're going to change things up. We have quite a crowd out here. I'm going to go all the way to the bottom of the page to the discussion on the future amendments to the zoning resolution.
Mr. Chairman, due to the fact that we have pending litigation and the threat of possible future pending litigation surrounding the proposed amendments that might come before us at this time, I would suggest that we do not discuss any of this until such litigation is settled.
Okay, so I have a motion by Robert Woodrow to not discuss the future amendments until litigation is reached an agreement.
Yes.
Do I have a second? Have a second by Mike Pilkerton. We will take a roll call vote on this.
Discussion?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I do have just an item to discuss on this. I'm inclined to agree that we should not take action on a zone text amendment that would impact the kinds of development that are subject of litigation. I agree with that. But I'd like us to consider what we normally would do in this situation if we weren't faced with pending litigation. We would appoint a subcommittee to study and go deep on this proposed zone text amendment. That subcommittee would take usually a couple of months or so to do its work and report back to this body that would then take action to vote yes or no on the zone text amendment. And we normally would not have two subcommittees working on two separate issues at the same time. We currently have a subcommittee working on traffic study guidelines. So even if we were in a normal situation, we wouldn't be able to really appoint a subcommittee to work on this until the subcommittee on traffic study guidelines completes its work. So it would be a 3, maybe a 4-month process under normal circumstances before we'd even get this zone text amendment back to this commission for a vote. Based on that, while I support the idea that we don't take action on this during pending litigation for lots of good reasons, I would like the body to reserve the possibility of appointing that subcommittee to study this, even during pending litigation, but without bringing it forward for a vote until the litigation is resolved. That way, if the litigation is resolved in a way that we could consider this, we would be ready to consider it and not be further delayed in bringing it back to the commission. I'm not offering that as an amendment to this motion, but I'd like us, after voting on this motion, to not foreclose the possibility of appointing that subcommittee to study this regulation, because studying it doesn't impact pending litigation, acting on it does. Thank you.
Yes, sir, I agree with you. Any further discussion?
I'm just in,
Hang on.
Yeah, go ahead, Wayne.
Turn that mic on.
Mr. Chairman, one thing that I would add to that is, of course, we have this new land use plan that the county is getting ready to do. And we could possibly just forward it on to that, because this land use plan is going to take several months, possibly a year, from what Mayor Ryle had talked to us about. So that's just something to give some consideration to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Durham. Mr. Comer?
It's a good point, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think that the subcommittee could still work on this particular proposal, and then when we come back to the commission could decide to act on it then, or to take the committee's work and wrap it into the land use plan at that time. But I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah, yes, Mr. Pippin.
I think we got lawyers to do this. We don't need to take the work of a lawyer. The lawyers need to do this and let us get the results of their survey, because we're not lawyers. We think we're lawyers, but we're not lawyers. Let the lawyers handle it, and then come back and tell us what they say, and we need to start listening to our lawyers. That's what I say.
Yes, sir.
well, Mr. Chairman, while I think that under ordinary conditions, what this proposed amendment addresses is well within the competence of this body and these commissioners, that under this time and these circumstances which we find ourselves, this is not an appropriate time to look at this right now. And I agree with Mr. Comer's discussion. I guess it's Commissioner Wetterell's motion. I'm in support of that motion, and I'm also in support of the general concept that this needs to be addressed by this body, but in the future and not tonight, and not right now.
Okay. Mr. Whitterow, you wish to amend your motion at
Yeah,
all?
that'll be fine.
To what?
That we could possibly set a subcommittee, but we're not gonna set it until after the one that's working now, so I think it's a moot point, but I will add that.
Okay. Mr. Pippin, I believe you was the second, is that right?
Yeah.
Are you willing to discuss that at a future time?
If the lawyers, I'm gonna listen to the lawyers. That's what I'm gonna do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that would not be seconding what Mr. Whitterow is saying then?
Mr. Chairman, I will second Mr. Wetterell's exact motion.
Okay. Mr. Whitterow made a motion that we suspend this until litigation is looked into and settled.
Yes.
And at a further date, we would consider a subcommittee to discuss this. Have a proper second by Robert Qualls. Is that correct? Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. And yes is for, no is not to.
Yeah.
Robert Qualls,
Yes.
Robert Witherow,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes.
Mike Pilkerton,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler,
Yes.
Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Motion passes. Now, if you, we'll take a short break if some folks want to leave after this, because if you want to stay, we certainly welcome you. It is a public meeting, but not a public hearing, so we will not be able to take any comments from the floor. Okay. Nobody chooses to leave. We'll move up to item number 1.
Mr. Chairman, while we're in other business, our annual training this year, due to the COVID-19 situation, we've not had ample time to prepare any type of training sessions, and so it's been advised that we opt out of training for this year. And so I would like to make that motion as well.
Okay.
R.J. Comer, I'll second.
Have a proper motion to opt out of our annual training and a proper second by Robert Comer. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this would be in accordance with the action already taken by our colleagues on the Board of Zoning Appeals to opt out of 2020 annual training.
Correct. Thank you, Mr. Qualls. I did forget that. We'll do a roll call vote on this.
Robert Witherow,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes.
Mac Pilkerton.
Yes.
Robert Qualls,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler, Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks, sir. Okay, now we'll move back up to the items. Item number 1 is preliminary plat for Sutherland property, Hogan Road subdivision, map 130, part of parcel 1.500, 4.62 acres, Hogan Road, Burns, Tennessee, A1 Agriculture, 6th District.
This was surveyed by Darren Christie, and they proposed a development of 4 lots on Hogan Road. As you'll see on your preliminary plat, there's also access on both sides to the remaining 31 acres that fall behind it. You'll also notice they proposed to put in 1 new fire hydrant between lots 1 and 2, and all lots also have a 30-foot overhead electrical easement. Now, we did not receive anything this month back from Michael Rogers. He's been ill, so I don't have any information from the Water Authority at this time. Mr. Collins?
All right. As far as staff's review of this request, I'll go down the list. Under planning issues, we do have this area. Character is a mixture of rural residential, agricultural, and timberland activities, as well as the the rural residential, which I'm being redundant there. Sorry. This area is characterized by our Dickson County Growth Plan as lying within the town of Burns urban growth boundary, where moderate to as much as high-density residential development is expected or projected. But of course, that's provided that the road system and adequate facilities are installed and coordinated to be adequate for supporting such a development. Of course, if the town of Burns did decide to annex down as far south as this, then upon that annexation, the land would be subject to the town's local standards. This portion of Hogan Road lies within lying within the unincorporated area of the county, is considered a minor status road according to our thoroughfare map. The portion that lies within the corporate limits of Burns envisions or has this section of Hogan Road identified as a minor arterial. So it would be, of course, staff's recommendation that if higher density developments were requested to go out into this area, it would certainly be a word of caution that the infrastructure be improved in order to support that. So anyway, that's all I was going to say under planning issues. As far as zoning issues, the property is zoned A1, and for the most part, all 4 of these lots have a buildable, a very buildable building envelope provided for each of them. However, with as I noted, and as shown on this preliminary plat, there is an overhead electrical line, which, since it is a more local utility provider, that it does have an easement that is applied to overlaying on this building envelope, which can disrupt the and minimize the a little bit of that building envelope. So the way that the overhead easement lays across that, it gives that impression that there's some building envelope out towards the front. If a landowner that purchases one of those lots has a vision for a considerable size house, they might find some complications. And I guess one such option is they might come to the Board of Zoning Appeals and request a variance later to allow them to move their house a little bit closer to the road. So the way that the topography is turned, it looks like just beyond this electrical easement is a very buildable site for future homes. So, staff's suggestion to adjust the building envelope to move the entirety of the building envelope as shown to just behind that electrical easement. That way it's just, it would minimize that trip to the BCA for a variance. That's the gist of that comment. Under plat issues, of course, I pointed out that the topography, it illustrates or appears to illustrate the highest point on the property is about midway or center of each of these lots, and if left as is, the drainage would probably sheet. Some of it would sheet towards the road, and the rest of it would sheet back to the rear of the property. Probably make directional towards the existing pond that's on the remaining acreage of the Sutherland properties. So it's staff's suggestion here to minimize any negative impact to the road during a storm event or to any of the development that does occur on each of the lots respectively, that at least for the front of the frontage, have ditching to where it can accommodate that runoff and be channeled away from the roadway, or at least minimized. And then, of course, the placement of drainage utility or drainage facilities between each of the lots is certainly advisable to help with channeling the water away from home sites and towards the lower end of this property, which is draining, as we see here, draining towards the pond. We do, there is an existing note on the plat. It's note number 5 that identifies driveway culverts size to be determined by the highway department. So that could be one such amendment place that we could put a reference to the drainage easements. Let's see. Hogan Road does have, according to the plat here, an existing 6-inch water line, and Mr. Darnell's already covered the proposed fire hydrant across from lots 1 and 2, as so shown on this preliminary plat. So it has been our practice to certainly confirm that by the time we see the final plat, that the a surety letter proof of that has been provided from the water authority, that they have discussed this with the applicant, and the hydrant has been covered, that it will be indeed installed. I did note that in a couple of places, I think I counted as many as three, Darren, that that there's a number of question marks that are put for referencing deed book and page, and that just needs to be filled in. And
Ken Sutherland, Southern Properties,
yeah.
the deed hadn't been recorded by the time I had to get this turned in, so I've got the new volume and page numbers to be able to find.
All right, thank you. All right, well, the remainder of my comments, just pointing out that there's, according to the registrar's office, at the time that I wrote my comments, that there's, the acreage, at least the remaining acreage, consists of 5 tracts, and they were created by deed. So, and of course, due to their size, they were allowed to do that. There's a 39 acre tract, a 22 acre, just over 20 acre tract, and then there's a 10 acre tract. So, of course, for the purpose of any future division of these tracts, staff just cautions careful consideration to do any further division to avoid creating any landlocked situations or flag lots. So that is something that we certainly want to make the owner of the remaining acreage aware of. But that's all the comments I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Mr. Christie, you wanna?
As to the note about the ditch and the drainage in the county right of way, is it to be addressed when to something to the effect of when the construction's made of the driveway? Because, I haven't really seen anything, it's using examples, what I'm getting at, Mr. Collins. Because once it's taken over, the county, I was my understanding the county had responsibility for that, taking care of that ditch.
Well, that's certainly something that I've not really clued in on. If the county goes out and builds a ditch and maintains it for that section of the roadway, it's the only reason why I bring it up is because the way that the land lays and how it would naturally drain back towards the road, that we want to make sure there's facilities that are going to be able to handle it and it doesn't just sheet off into the road.
That's no problem, and I'll put
Sure.
a note on there about the drainage easement on the side lot line and stuff.
All right.
Yes, sir.
I was just concerned on lot number 1, the line of sight. Do we have any, is there any issues if there's driveway or house built on there? Because coming up from Hogan Road from the Burns area, I know the old house there, it's a bad line of sight problem. And lot number 1 is not too far from where that first lot, that old house would be. That's the only concern that I see every day driving by there.
Yeah, and I put a note on there, Robin, that the southeast corner of that lot is where that,
Put it as close
driveway
to
will
that
have to be, because it does have the minimum distance there, but you're right, exactly, on the west side, no, it doesn't.
And is Mr. Sutherland going to develop the rest of the property later on, or has that been discussed?
Probably gonna, the remainder's gonna be 5+ greater tracks.
Okay, so the only way to enter that was going to be at that area that's not visible for the traffic.
That's just for the house. Now, on the other end, further down the road, there's gonna be 2 50-foot strips on the
We're talking about the house, on the photographs, it's got the red top. I can't think of who owns that house now.
You'd access the other tracks at the side of lot 4, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Right in between, yes.
That's your 50-foot,
Yeah,
okay,
50-foot strip.
okay, I see it now. Thank you.
And, that does bring up that, that thought or that caution that I mentioned earlier about future division. The way that the Tennessee Code is written, that quote-unquote 5-acre rule, if there's not a, major infrastructure like a new road or major water line, trunk line that's going to be going back into the property to serve those new lots proposed, then they can, as long as they keep the size of those new tracts, 5 acres or greater, then we can't really hold them to that flag lot design. So that is a folly of the statute, but that's what we have to deal with.
Okay. Any more questions? If not, what's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, how can we make sort of Mr. Collins' comments part of the record without, we obviously, it's like you said, we can't say, we're not going to let you have flag lights out of the rest of it. But it would be the sense of the board that that's strongly discouraged and that we were advised that that's less than good practice. It's not the best practice. And that we agreed that it's not.
Well, if we can't enforce it, all we can do is strongly encourage it not to
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And having said that, I think it would be in order to move to approve this with the stipulation that the Water Authority of Dickson County will get back with us before this goes any further with the surety or with the assurance from them that the fire hydrant has been paid for and is in the process.
Okay. And do you want to also add the driveway restriction? for
And,
lot
and
one?
and as previously discussed, the driveways being culverted and having a ditch between the front of the lot and the road, the right of way of the road.
Okay, so with
Lot one having that
And, yeah,
I believe it's
southeast,
and that being stipulated on plat. All right.
so you're making a motion to approve this with the
No
water authority
stipulation.
being satisfied and the driveway being restricted to the southeast corner of
And
lot
the
one
ditching, and the ditching being done properly along the right of way.
and the ditching.
Huh?
Do have a proper motion by Robert Qualls. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by David Brogdon. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do, hang on just a minute. Mr. Wayne Durham has a comment.
Go ahead, Wayne.
Darren, if we put the ditches in, is it gonna cause a problem with the roadway? Like, will it daylight on both ends past the subdivision?
I don't think it will, Mr. Durham, because that's gonna drain toward the east, basically along the road. It's a gentle slope that way from, west to east. So I think if the culvert, the ditch needs to be pulled there. Right now, the way I got in there into the field with my truck and trailer was crossed through there, it's not much of a ditch, so the ditch does need to be pulled. But it would drain, I think, properly from west to east.
Okay.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
Robert Witherow,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes.
Mac Pilkerton,
Yes.
Robert Qualls,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler,
Yes.
Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to item number 2, preliminary plat for Smith Estate subdivision, map 076, parcel 28.01, 11.32 acres, Old County House Road, Charlotte, Tennessee, A1 Agriculture, First District.
Okay, this was also surveyed by Christie Surveying. They proposed a development of 9 lots on Old County House Road with access, as you see on the aerial in the middle, to the remaining 6.5 acres. They also proposed 1 new fire hydrant in front of lot 9, and lots 1 through 8, as you can see on the preliminary, they have a 30-foot overhead electric easement covering on all lots 1 through 8. Mr. Collins?
All right. This one is along very similar discussion points to the previous item, except this one's located in the city of Charlotte's urban growth boundary. And of course, if ever annexed by Charlotte, the land would be subject to their local standards. Our land use and transportation plan does conceptualize more progressive residential development in this area and coordinated to have adequate utility infrastructure. Under zoning issues, we do have once again the presence of an overhead electrical line bisecting the multiple lots. Not all the lots are greatly affected by their building envelopes. It looks like most noticeably lots 1 through 4, and then lots 5 and 6 have 1 through 4 the electrical line bisects the building envelopes almost completely in half. It's when we get over to lots 5, 6, 7, and 8 that less and less of the electrical easement is affecting it. So that is, once again, could inhibit the development potential for several of those lots if they wanted to build out in front of that electrical easement. So that's just something for the future owner of that lot to be aware of, and they just, I guess, need to put a little bit of a thought into where they want to put their home site, and of course, where the septic systems perk might have some effect as well on where their home sites will end up.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
if you don't mind, and maybe Mr. Christie can answer this, or
Sure.
staff. With this electrical easement, would you be allowed to put subsurface sewer in that easement area? I know you can't build on it, but
Yes, you can. Dickson Electric will allow it, but TVA,
Well, no.
no.
will not. Okay.
Dixon Electric is all right with it.
Okay. I knew TVA. You didn't do. They wanted. Sam Abernathy got into it with them over putting some fence up. Yeah. So they wanted permission to drive fence posts in the ground.
Yeah.
So okay.
Yeah, that there's a part in that in TDEC's guidelines for septic systems where it talks about easements and how close an easement or a property line or home site can be to that septic system. And I was a little curious about how to whether I should elaborate on that or not. So I'll just kind of let you speak on it.
You talking about as far as building the septic areas?
Yeah, that
They
septic.
used to have that covered in the notes. If you, next time you look, see Rick Robinson's notes on there, and it's 25 foot from the, isn't that right, 25 foot from the house, 10 foot from sideline.
Yeah, I was just curious about the when an electrical easement gets involved.
That Dickson Electric line, there's they have no requirements against septic lines going through there.
Okay, thank you, Darren. All right, as far as the way that the property's contours lay, it does appear to be a little different here in that it's a gradual descending pattern from the front of each lot, respectively, towards the rear. So this is not one where the drainage will. It looks like if they do develop each of the lots and allow for the natural drainage, then it's still going to be recommended to the drainage easements between each lot so that they come towards the rear as they naturally drain. So it is something that I'm sure will be a little more examined during the construction plan phase, and so I think that it's certainly encourageable to design the right facilities, and ditching in the front is it sounds very shouldn't that be obvious, but sometimes you have to put it in writing before just so that somebody doesn't just ignore that and go on. Well, anyhow, the Old County House Road has an existing 6-inch water line, and it's on the north side of the road. There is one existing hydrant that's not far from the curve as we go eastward on Old County House. So, but the applicant is providing one new hydrant to cover the other lots. There are lots 1 through 4, and once again, that proof of sureties provided Water Authority is is guaranteed will be installed by the time we see the final plat. There is also some acreage remaining with the parent parcel that we could see further division to create a new lot, but of course that's going to be the prerogative of the landowner of the remaining acreage, whether they want to keep it intact or divide it again. So there is potential there, or so it seems, that at best they could get maybe 1 or as many as 2 new lots out of this. Other than that, I think just the addition of drainage easements between each lot, and then just addition of a ditching note along the frontage is about all I got on it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Collins. Mr. Christie, did you want to add anything, or?
Let me ask Mr. Collins this, I'm always been used to putting, even if it was just a small sliver, but I have no problem with taking off the setback in front of 6, but 5 I'd like to keep, because we could actually place a home in there. And especially since that lot doesn't have a whole lot of extra area for septic. It may be what Stevie Smith has to do when he gets the building on that one there.
Right. I'm not, I think similar to how we looked at the previous plat, it's just something to informative for everyone that there's that even though there is a sliver building envelope out in front, there might be some issues. But maybe with lot 5, they've got a little bit more width there to make good use of it.
Okay.
And Mr. Christie, I've got one question here. This property that's adjacent to it, this Samuel Curtis, I noticed looks like a strip behind lots 5 through 9. Is that actually his easement to get out? Because it looks like this parcel number 30.04 is landlocked.
No, that is, Mr. Mincy's selling this property to Stevie Smith, and he, of course, we had to leave him 5 acres, which we had no problem with that, but we had to be careful about the 4-to-1 ratio. He was fine with leaving that 50-foot strip in there. This property's already transferred too. It hadn't by the time I did the
Okay.
original plat, so that's a 50-foot strip through there.
Well, there again, I would almost be inclined to give a variance to that, 4-to-1 ratio on such as this, so we don't have, because I mean that the remaining parcel's a cobbled up mess, and
I agree.
I would almost do that if they wanted to reconsider connecting those to those lots, and that's something you may consider, and if they want to do it, like I said, I would be inclined to give a variance on that, for these lots in this situation.
I think Mr. Wetterell has a valid point there, but we can't both proceed with this and not proceed with it tonight. We have to do one or the other.
Right.
What do you think your developer would prefer there?
Well, the two tracks have already been sold, and of course, when I drew this plat up, of course, I had to have it turned in 2 weeks ago. It hadn't closed by then, but now it has. And from my perspective,
Right.
I can't count, and I don't expect y'all to give me a good variance, every variance that comes in here, so really.
Right.
In a way, I feel like my hands are sort of tied. I have to go by the regulations because I can't advise my clients based upon what variance you might give and what variance you might not give.
Exactly. Exactly, but you can also see in the future that, this remaining lot is kind of messy.
I know it's ugly.
Yes.
That remaining tract is gonna stay as it is, pretty much. It's gonna be one potential site, maybe, from somebody that
Right.
doesn't care what his yard's shaped like.
That's
Right,
right.
right.
Okay.
And
It's not gonna change.
and like you said, what's done is done. It's already closed out and sold. But, with that in mind, I would rather have, something a little neater than, because it's another 50 foot. I mean, that 4-to-1 ratio is to keep you from having, a 75 foot, by 500 foot lot just to get them created. And, I would a whole lot rather have something that's a little neater than this. But with that said, I would move that we would, approve the preliminary plat for the Smith Estates subdivision, with, staff comments.
Okay. Have a motion by Robert Woodrow to approve the preliminary plat for the Smith Estate subdivision. Do I have a second? Second. Have a second by Mike Pilkington. Any further discussion?
Is there, signatures required and signatures
On the
required?
final, there will be, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we do have a proper motion, proper second. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
Robert Willerow,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes.
Mac Pilkerton. Yes. Robert Qualls,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler,
Yes.
Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll move into item number 3, preliminary plat for the Hamptons subdivision, map 074, part of parcel 17.07, 8.80 acres, Shorty Few Road, Ridge Road, Dickson, Tennessee, A1 Agriculture, First District.
This was also surveyed by Christie Surveying. They proposed a development of 8 lots, which is on the corner of Ridge Road and Shorty Few Road. As you'll see on your plat, there is only a 4-inch water line that runs down both roads. We did not hear anything back from the Water Authority, so we're not sure if they're gonna have to be updated. If they will have to put in a fire hydrant.
That's Tennessee City.
Is it Tennessee City?
That's what I thought, yeah.
I've not heard anything from them either.
And they ain't putting in no fire hydrants. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mr. Collins?
Well, thank you for that clarification on the Water Authority versus
Yeah.
Tennessee City. I thought it was Water Authority also.
I'm almost positive it is, STCP.
It is. I have a map of theirs.
Okay.
Well, if it's theirs, they're not gonna upgrade.
All right.
Yeah.
As far as, just going through my comments here, this one is located in our planned growth area where we are at least it's anticipated through the county growth plan it does identify this area to have, that potential for more moderate growth in residential development. The land use plan, the county's land use plan does conceptualize more progressive development, provided the adequate utilities and infrastructure is provided. Going into zoning issues, according to aerial imagery, it appears that there's an existing barn that's located what looks to be about right behind proposed Lot 7, Lot 8. And looks like it'll be just located right there on the remaining acres of the Hampton property. So I guess just for confirmation that that's indeed the case and not going to become part of Lot 7 or Lot 8. The Lot 5 is Lot 5's design indicates it'll be a corner lot if approved, and it'll be subject to 2 front setbacks, which this plat does indicate it correctly by the way the building envelope's drawn. Additionally, there is the presence of an existing pond with a portion of the building envelope for Lot 5 lying within it. So, if the pond is going to be utilized for any capturing of runoff from the other lots, then that may very well, if it's not designed carefully, then the owner of Lot 5 might be a recipient during a storm event of the runoff from everybody, from other lots. I'll admit I did not get out to review this property, so I'm going to assume, but it's certainly worth confirming for everyone if the right there where the pond is located at Shorty Few Road, that there's a culvert that runs up underneath the road and goes over to the property right across that has an even bigger pond. I'm going to assume by the way the contour lays that that's the case, but we would certainly need to make sure that that there is a culvert under the road, and B, that it's suitably sized to be able to accommodate the runoff due to more impervious surface from this development that drain. If in fact these lots all drain towards that pond on lot 5, and then go from there. So it's certainly just a few thoughts that I had as far as the drainage goes for this plat. Under plat issues, that's it'd be redundant if I repeated much of that about the existing pond, so I won't repeat myself on that. However, the natural lay of the contours does give impression that unless it's turned in to go in a different direction, it's going to go straight towards lot 5. Let's see, moving on to letter C under plat issues for driveway access. The corner lot being that lot 5 being a corner lot, and that Ridge Road is considered a minor collector versus Shorty Few, which is just considered a minor road. Our subdivision regulations require the driveway placement should be from the lesser status road. So staff would recommend that that notation be shown, at least on the final plat, that the driveway access for lot 5 should come from Shorty Few instead of directly on Ridge Road. Of course, as far as the remaining comments, the presence of an existing 4-inch water line, just hearing back from the water provider, if they believe their facilities out there are sufficient to support these lots, or if upgrades are necessary. That's certainly something to spur further conversation. Of course, the remaining acreage of the Harrington property, access could come from technically 2 locations. One is down there where that 50-foot wide strip of land between lot 1 and Thomas Vandervoort's property could end up being one such access. To me, in my opinion, it should be just no more than one lot would get that access, and then any further division access should come from up above lot 8 somewhere. But anyhow, as far as that goes, confirming the location of that existing barn and the driveway restriction for lot 5. Addition of the drainage culvert and size under Shorty Few Road, if one such one exists. Then the drainage easements between each lot for directing runoff. That's about all the comments I got.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Collins. Mr. Christie, you care to address that? I mean, I am familiar with this, and that pond it showed is kind of a glorified mud puddle.
Yeah, and all by the time I have the final, all located in the culvert and have the size. Scott's native over there, and he said there's a culvert across there, so there's one there. I just need to get the information to you on the plat.
And you think probably the developer's gonna fill that pond in to create a better building lot?
Again, it's probably not that deep, it's just a big mud puddle.
Right.
The road moves it back a little bit, but it doesn't serve a real good purpose for anybody.
Well, I just by the scale of it, I didn't think it could be very much. And with that said, we don't know what the ground is going to be like back there. And I agree with Mr. Collins that driveway should be on Shorty Few Road. However, if we were to say, that driveway 4 or 5 be placed as close to lot number 4 as possible, would that still work? We know we can't have it in that intersection. And, so it's gonna have to be on one corner, probably one corner or the other of that lot, either on border lot 6 or gonna border lot 4.
In my mind, up there to the north, close to lot 6 would be the ideal.
Okay,
We're still waiting for more results from Division of Water Resources.
okay. Well, if it works on 6, then we don't,
Next to 6.
it's not an issue. I just was afraid with this pond and then possibly, surrounding a pond, it can be a little marshy, and I was afraid you might not be able to get a driveway or, what have you. So you would need it to be in that next to lot.
The only problem with if they face the house like 1, 2, 3, and 4, and they face it that way, and your driveway's around the corner, it gets to be a 911 issue, because they're looking for
Exactly.
the lot in the dark, ambulance is looking for the lot,
E-
and
e-
can't find it.
Exactly. So, I know, I agree with Mr. Collins, but if it does that, do we need to, come back with a variance for that driveway for lot 5?
Well, that brings up a question that I have, and my map may be wrong that I have, David, but my map shows Shorty Few as being a minor collector, that section through there, and it may be wrong, it may have just got miscolored in one day.
I'd have to look.
Okay.
There's not too many houses on it.
I know, but people got
Yeah.
through there, I guess, is the
Oh,
reason
yeah,
why
it is
they
cut off,
didn't
that's all
count
it
for that, I guess.
Yeah,
That's all it's
So they may possibly be the same classification.
okay.
something that, I
Um,
wish you'd look into it.
Well, as far as, just checking the copy of the major road plan that I have, it has Ridge Road as a colored
Right.
road, whereas the Shorty Few is just left as just your standard black and white local road.
Well, let Rick Robinson get done with you, and then then you'll see where your house is
It
gonna
may
be.
change completely since then.
And if it winds up we need the driveway to come out for lot 5 on the Ridge Road, we can address it. Yeah. We'll work with you on that.
Yeah, I've got a question. The building that Brian Collins mentioned isn't part of these lots, but it looks like there's a path or a drive that cuts across lot 1. It starts, I'm looking at the aerial. It-
That's gonna be an issue, not an issue, our soul, they're gonna have to put the house in the far north end of lot 1, because the
Okay.
better souls is gonna be down there toward the road, so, yeah, it's sort of one of those deals where when you're dealing with septic area, it's, you can't use any of that area where that, driveway's at.
Well, is there another way to get to that building otherwise you're looking for
You have
an
to go through the
easement?
50-foot strip that's left there.
Okay,
No
okay.
problem.
You don't expect any kind of easement across lot 1, do you?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the preliminary plat of the Hampton subdivision, with staff comments and, the proper signatures.
Okay. Have a motion by Robert Woodrow to accept the preliminary plat for the Hampton subdivision with staff comments.
I'll second.
Have a second by Harold Williams. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
Robert Withrow,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes.
Mike Pilkerton. Robert Qualls,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler,
Yes.
Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we do have does pass.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll go to item number 4, amended final plat of lots 1 and 2 of Ellie Acres subdivision. It's map 140, parcels 8.01 and 8.02, 5.4 acres, Garner Creek Road, Dickson, Tennessee, A1 Agriculture, 2nd District.
Okay, this is surveyed by XL Land Company. If you'll remember, these 8 lots originally come through in May of this year. If you'll look at your plat, that they have combined, they want to combine lots 1 and 2. That gives you a better location to put your house envelope, because there is quite a bit of the special flood hazard area, especially on what was lot 1.
Yeah.
Mr. Collins?
Well, as far as planning issues and zoning issues, I don't have any comments. However, As Mr. Darnell mentioned, there is the presence of a special flood hazard area that encompasses much of Lot 1 and a portion of Lot 2. Of course, as it appears on the plat, the amended plat, the new home is placed and designed to be located just outside of that any special flood hazard area. So there's of course, if they take out a mortgage, the mortgage lender may very well say, we're going to have you get flood insurance, but that's but as far as zoning issues, there was nothing of major concern there. Under plat issues, I did want to just reemphasize that we did, when we discussed the original final plat, that due to Garner's Creek bordering the rear of these lots, we did require a 10-foot wide unobstructed drainage easement, and so placed on the recorded plat. I got a copy of it from the registrar's office, and note number 6 did indeed address that drainage easement as we so required. So I don't think that this amended plat's anticipated to void out that comment, but it is just something that I would certainly recommend that this note, as shown on original recorded plat for note number 6, that it be cited in some way on this amended plat. Just cover all the bases so that that doesn't get voided out. But I'm just wanted to make you aware of it. Other than that, the amended plat just needs all the necessary signatures.
Mr. Chairman, this is my district, and I know we've looked at it before. I believe Mr. Christie did the initial survey on it, and so I'll address the same issue with Stephen. When I was 16 years old, I was down there in that field baling hay, and I lost my granddaddy's Schrade Walden pocket knife. While y'all are around there digging around, if you come across it, please grab it for me. Other than that, we've addressed those issues with the creek and stuff. Had a
We do have all the information.
lengthy discussion, and I'm sure that's all recorded on those deeds. And if it would, just make sure they get, transferred to this new lot. So, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we accept this amended plat for the Ellie Acres subdivision with the staff comments and the proper signatures.
Okay, have a proper motion by Robert Witherow to accept the amended final plat of lots 1 and 2 of Ellie Acres subdivision with the staff comments and notes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second by David Brogdon. Any further discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote.
Robert Witherow,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes.
Mike Pilkerton. Yes. Robert Qualls,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler,
Yes.
Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion carries.
Thank you. We'll now move into the last item, rezoning request for JDF Properties, Excel Land Company, map 111, part of parcel 197, 34.57 acres, Highway 47, Burns, Tennessee, 11th District, requesting change from C1 commercial to A1 agriculture.
This was also surveyed by Excel Land Company. This was what was known as the former Camp Christian. This is the rear section of almost, just about 34.5 acres. Mr. Ford, who is right here, he's building his own private residence back there, and he wants to rezone it from C1 to A1, which gives him more flexibility of what he can do. He wants to leave the front right now as commercial for possible future development. Mr. Collins?
All right. This property in question has come up in conversation in multiple communities over the past few months. I think it was in Burns that me and Mr. Ford talked about what would be the possibility for the town of Burns to wrestle it from the city of Dickson and put it into their urban growth boundary. And David, I haven't heard anything more about it after I had initial discussion with Jason at the city and with Carol and Burns. So as it stands right now, the property is located in the city of Dickson's urban growth boundary, and it does border the town of Burns corporate limits in more than one place. So it is just in a very peculiar location. Section 5.041 provides the bulk zoning standards for our A1 zoning district, and the application indicates the application indicates the entirety of the acreage, or at least this portion that being requested, will be utilized for one single-family residential dwelling. I have not been out onto this property to see what all's out there currently, but I just know that once upon a time it was Camp Christian. But there's, according to the aerial imagery that I saw, it appears to be some other structures on premises that might have been left over from that former activity. So, if the applicant's ever interested in utilizing these structures for other uses than other than for incidental use for the residential dwelling, then a conversation with the county planning and zoning department would be needed to discuss what your options would be. Let's see. I did have a comment about the remaining 9.5 acres or so that's going to remain C1. The land is located just behind a row of houses that are zoned R2. And there is according to the sketch that we have here, there is a proposed, at least the framework here for a potential new road to be a cul-de-sac dead end right there, and of course provide access to this acreage in question. That it certainly would be an awkward situation to have commercial behind residential. Usually it's the other way around. Commercial's out at the arterial, out at the road frontage, and then residential's behind it. But in this case, that would be a different, a reverse angle here. So if if a landowner came in and purchased that C1 zoned portion and wanted to develop it commercial, then they're going to be wedged on multiple sides by A1 and R2 zoned property. So whoever wants to try to develop that commercially, they may be hemmed in quite a bit by by the necessity of landscape buffering, among other things. So it's it might be worthwhile for an entrepreneur to come in and rezone that property, remaining property, to as much as R2, and extend sewer back there to it and water and an adequate street, and continue on with the residential character that this area is experiencing. Anyhow, that's a discussion for another day, I suppose. There is, sewer is available to this area now, so it's does make for that potential for a variety and of residential development. So that's another reason for making that consideration for a zoning change for that remaining acreage. But I don't have any other comments.
Okay.
Otherwise.
Mr. Ford, are you gonna, your ingress egress for this, is it gonna come off of this subdivision road, or are you gonna bring a road in off of the highway?
It's gonna be off
two other tracks that we subdivided off that have been built on. They just didn't ask to have them rezoned. They're an 8-acre tract and a 16-acre tract. And I don't know why they haven't asked to get rezoned. It's single-family dwellings on acreage.
Yeah.
You don't have any problem with what Mr. Collins is saying, that at some point, if somebody really wants to develop that for what it's zoned for now, they're gonna have several obstacles between buffering and lack of visibility from 47.
As soon as the growth plan's opened up, the city of Dickson needs to relinquish it, because it's in the city of Dixon's growth plan. And I will petition Burns to annex it, and we'll probably do some more development there. But it's, right now, the amount of land use that's there and the restrictions on the type of development I would want to put there, it would cause, you guys would have to create a few variances for it.
Right.
So, we're just gonna put it on hold.
Right.
And once kind of,
And-
the county gets back into a normal operating mode, they're gonna probably open up the growth plan. Because we would have already done that, like Mr. Collins talked about months ago, we spoke about this. But the law prohibits
And
Burns from annexing while it's in the city of Dixon's growth plan. So they can't get it out of their growth plan until the county gets together to open the growth plan. So I just kinda wanna let it sit there, and when the government gets caught up with the growth plan, we'll petition the Burns.
And we understand you're in the residential building business, so, and I think everyone would agree, we'd a whole lot rather see that developed into some residential than put something there commercial that's gonna cause a hardship on the neighborhood.
Mr. Ford, as usual, has the grasp of what he's trying to do and
Right.
what this body's trying to do, so.
Right.
I don't think what Mr. Collins said was any way a shock to him or throwing things off. I think this is going just like it's supposed to.
If, Mr. Collins, I do have a question. So if Mr. Ford has that road going in and he builds a road over to the commercial, in a sense, that would put the commercial property in front of the residential, because the residential faces the highway is Burns. So would that create a directional issue?
I see what you're saying, Shane, is if I build a road down the middle where that's proposed and it's current zoning of commercial, now I would have road frontage on the east and west side of the road that would be commercial.
Right. I'm just wondering about a future,
Is that what you're saying?
yes, a
Yeah.
future conflict of, because the back would be, the front would then become the back, because you would back to Burns.
Well, you would have back-to-back, you would have the back of the commercial to the back of these residential, but you'd still need to have some buffering.
You'd have buffering,
between
but
the
it,
two different zones.
yes.
Yeah, and I think the buffering with with kind of the layout of this with the buffering and offsets for commercial and all, I think it's gonna eat it up anyhow, so I don't think it's gonna be
Okay.
I don't think it's really feasible for commercial, but we understand where you're coming from, so, I know this is, Mr. Durham's district, but he's kinda limited on the phone there. I would, move that we, accept and send this this rezoning, because it's gonna have to go to county commission. We send this rezoning request on as presented.
Okay. Have a motion by Robert Witherow to send this to the county commission. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Wayne Durham. Okay. Do we just need to acknowledge this, or is it a roll call
We'll do a
vote?
roll call vote.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
One more discussion.
Oh, yeah, discussion, sorry.
No, that's right, just a quick question. The access to the area that you want to rezone to A1, is that gonna actually be developed as a road or as a private drive?
It's right now a private drive.
Yeah.
The county 911, I requested that be a private drive there. So it's actually called Speedy Watts Way.
Yeah.
So the address for my personal house will be Speedy Watts Way. It won't be Highway 47.
Okay,
So,
okay,
Yeah, that's already been approved, you've already,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay. Well,
Just as an informational item, too, Mr. Ford, do you have any plans other than demolition for the former Camp Christian?
It's all gone. It's been gone for 3 years.
Okay.
When we first went down there, when we first purchased it, the buildings were dilapidated and been vandalized because they had been abandoned for a number of years.
Yeah.
So we removed all the hazards, and it kinda looks like Montgomery Bell down there now, that's what we were shooting for, and
I'm building my personal house down there. There's very small chance that any of it will ever be developed. If I can build in other places, then I'd like to leave that as a whole tract of land, but, I don't wanna pigeonhole myself by taking
Right.
that zoning away that's currently there now. I'd rather just let it kinda sit there and let's see what happens, in
Right.
the future.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, we have a proper motion and second. We'll roll call vote. We'll wait for Mr. Evans. Just out of sake of wondering if it was, camp property, wonder why it was zoned commercial to begin with?
I don't have any idea why it was on, unless it was because of
Well,
it was, I don't know.
I think because it was existing before zoning
Before
was
codes,
here,
That's probably what they zoned.
it was grandfathered in as a commercial enterprise. And so that was the reason why.
I don't think there's anybody here that was here when they set the initial zoning back in the mid-eighties, so. Heard a lot about it.
From my discussions with Donnie Thiel, we had a conversation about something else, and it was this Camp Christian was brought up as an example, and by the way we define campgrounds and recreation, public recreation versus private recreation, I think that this might have been one of those we just both weren't sure, and so we just tried to best interpret the zoning ordinance going forward with that in mind. So that was, in other words, one of those I don't knows.
Yeah. And there were several tracks that when the zoning was established, that was grandfathered in that today there's no way we would approve of. But because it was existing businesses and stuff that those things were put in place.
You can't use zoning to stop people from what they're already
Right,
doing.
correct.
Exactly.
See, according to our resolutions now, it'd have to be a C2 zoning to have a campground. So this is only a C1.
Okay.
But you're probably right, it was put in once, it was grandfathered in.
And maybe even the C1 regs at that
At one
time
time,
covered it.
yes,
And
correct.
I would dare to say that it did.
All right, Robert Witherill,
Yes.
Shane Chandler,
Yes. We
Max
do have a
Pilkington.
proper motion and second on the floor to approve this.
We do have a proper motion and a proper second.
yes.
though.
Yes, we did. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, sir.
That's all right. Mac Pilkerton. Yes. Robert Qualls,
Yes.
David Brogdon,
Yes.
Harold Williams,
Yes.
Larry Evans, Gary Peeler,
Yes.
Wayne Durham,
Yes.
Robert Comer.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, motion carries.
Thank you. That brings us to all of our items on the agenda, unless somebody has something else to add.
Does council need to see us this evening? Thank you. I'd just like to say thank you to Mr. Evans for practicing, good sanitary habits, because he come back rubbing his hands where he'd done washed them.
All right, motion to adjourn.
Move adjourn.
7 p.m. Dickson County Courthouse Annex.